just answer some general questions. And we can, is it already on? So, you have it there? You can already put a recording if you want.
Okay.
You can already put the recording button on.
They both on.
Oh, okay, great. So in the meantime, while we're waiting for a few other people, it's not the easiest place to find. Park, hang out, and do activities on. I can just answer some general questions for you. Again, within the group that you may have specific, and then when I get into the meeting, I can talk about a lot of this stuff. It's a slideshow, and it'll answer a lot of your questions. But today's focus is going to be to really help you guys understand fire escapes and just what is, how fire escapes are looked at nationwide, but how are you doing fire escapes here, and what you may or may not be crossing a line. Because, you know, I had a meeting with Daryl in regards to just how fine that line is when you're filling out the form, you know what I'm saying, to make sure you're not crossing that line. So I can answer as many questions as I can, and again, I will screw it up a little bit, but again, anything you should verify with Daryl, you know, as you go along, because how many attended that class for the February one, the Brycer class? Anybody here? Do you guys go to the Brycer class?
We had somebody else was going right now.
It was very exciting in that, you know, as they're going to get this thing more automated, you know, there's a lot of buildings that are going to be coming online that are going to be more automated so that things are getting done. So we're very excited about that. But let's open it up. Anybody have questions that I can answer that are just specific before we get into a general conversation about this?
Now, what do you mean about crossing the line? What line are you talking about?
Well, as Daryl explained to me, there's, you know, you're a tester, not an inspector. So you have to be very careful that you don't influence the client in any way, saying that you're giving him more information than he needs. So the code of conduct for your Reg 4 is that in fire escapes, and I have a copy of the exam of the test here. So, and again, we'll cover this again, so we may be answered, but basically what I'll cover today is that in the document here on the fire escape test, you know, you got two parts. The top part wants you to look at the whole fire escape all the way up to the gooseneck. And then the bottom part is the testing. You're gonna cross the line. Some things, the code nationwide states that fire escapes must be examined by design professionals or others acceptable to the building official or the authority having jurisdiction. So in some cases, when you get into a train wreck, it actually now requires that somebody else comes in to do an evaluation for the owner. It's not that you can give the evaluation, they have to bring in whoever they deem professional. So if you have a fire escape that got ripped off the side of a building and it's on the ground, it's going to start involving some design professionals to be involved in there, because your job is to test a system, not to give an evaluation on the system. So that's some of the things that we'll cover here today. Any other questions?
Okay, is the line you're talking about crossing basically is with Rec 4, you tested as it was built and existed at the time of construction.
Right.
So in certain things on your paperwork that I got or whatever, you were talking about the weight and everything else, determining about the weight that the fire escape will handle and everything
Right,
else.
the load test, they call it the load
Correct.
test. It's not a Reg 4 requirement. Yeah, but I'm gonna talk about it. So, you know, what we wanna do is we wanna sort of focus today's class on everything related to the ladder system. And then, so that'll be 75% of our conversation. You know, you can ask me any question about a fire escape. How do you fix them? You know, as far as the ladders, you know, what are your problems? Because we inspect from Maine to Florida, Seattle to San Diego, and from Chicago to Texas. So we have all of those, that information to share with you. But you're limited in what you can examine during a Reg 4. And your Reg 4, you're a tester. You know, and it's down at the bottom that you're testing that system, you know, whether it be the accordion ladder, whether it be a drop ladder. So for example, how many people here have had issues with hydraulic ladders? Leaking, like, you know, you got more oil in hydraulic ladders. That's the newfound riches in America. You should just start sneaking around and stealing oil from all these ladders, and you know, you'll be a millionaire because there's so much oil. And how many people have ever seen the little coffee can underneath to keep
Oh, yeah.
to catch the drips?
Yeah, to catch it from the packing, yeah.
Yeah, and so as you know, those are pistons. You know, those are basically a piston with a bushing. It actually, I have never in my life been able to fix one. Anybody here ever fix one or saw one fixed?
Fixed multiple ones.
And
What
they-
haven't you been able to fix about them?
Well, a lot of times it's people don't. You know, there's loss of pressure. You know, that you can't maintain the hydraulics has a bushing inside, correct? The rod comes
Well, it
down.
has a
and then-
washer inside that's inside the diameter of the tube, so.
Have you been able to find the bushings?
I've actually made them, literally out of regular washers and stuff like that.
So is it
They're
is it
1/16 of an inch thick, so you just get them for the inside diameter of the pipe most of the time.
so is
on
it a
the-
bushing or is it a washer that's
It's actually
creating?
a flat washer
That's
that rides
creating-
on the bottom of the guide rod, so it only allows X amount of fluid to pass by that washer.
So
when the
there is
ladder
a transference
dropped.
of oil from the bottom tube to
Correct.
the. So when you're cranking it up now, what's the resistance? So this is great information for you guys to know. Like, so are you an ornamental guy? What's
No, just fire protection company, but
Okay.
just learned through the years on servicing them and everything else. You know, when you have leakers and stuff, that you have to basically drain the ladder, you've got to exchange the fluid, you've got to redo the packing. A lot of times the washer on the bottom, if they haven't done it in multiple years, the washer on the bottom will rot out and rust and everything. So you just literally have to replace everything. A lot of times they'll bend the guide rods
The
and
guide
stuff.
rods
When
are
they
always
have it
bent on
over
these
tightened
things.
on the nuts at the top, they'll tweak out the guide rod so you can't bring the ladder back up.
right? But in bringing it back up on a properly functioning system, are you finding resistance because now you has to go through the same process of pushing
There's
the oil
supposed to
back?
be resistance so it doesn't leak with the packing and everything, but not a great deal, just enough to where you can still bring it up. Most of the time the guide rods will tell you, just by the tension on the guide rods, if the guide rod starts
That's the
flexing, then
bending.
it's too tight. So you just loosen up your packing a little bit.
Now,
So-
this
so-
is information for everybody here. So, you know that on all these tubular railing systems, they have a cap on the bottom.
Correct.
What are they primarily made of? Is it?
It's just galvanized, it's
It's
just
just a
galvanized pipe.
galvanized, but it's a standard interior pipe, a plumbing pipe,
Correct,
right?
correct.
So they have a cap on the bottom, and so if you were releasing the pressure to get the oil out, that's where you take the
Yeah.
whole ladder down and do this, or you take it and you do it in place?
Oh, you have to take it down when you'd be a disaster to try and do that up in place.
So
Or
take
you
the whole
have to
ladder down.
Take it down.
So now you take the caps off the bottom, that's gonna let you drain.
Correct.
What fluid have you put back in there?
Standard hydraulic oil.
Standard
Tractor
hydraulic oil?
oil.
Then you're gonna find this long 5/8 rod.
Well, it's half-inch diameter rod.
Half-inch or 5/8,
That's
but
only if
half
you
inch
have to
normally.
replace them. Most of the time, you
Because
don't
they're
have to
bent.
replace them.
Standard, you get those, any special requirement of those? Or are they
They're
standard
cold rolled steel.
Cold rolled steel, half inch.
So any metal fabricating place.
So now at the bottom, you have to thread it, right? Because
Correct.
you're gonna, so you have to get a threader at the bottom of the rod. You're saying that now if you have a 2-inch pipe, or
Well,
inch and a half,
most of the time they're usually 1.25 in diameter.
okay,
Almost all
on the
time.
inside.
Yeah.
So you gotta get a washer now that's gonna be 1/16 less than that, or 1/8.
Correct. Just
16?
a little bit less. It's hard to tell as far as the actual diameter.
So where are you gonna
and stuff.
find that special washer?
Usually at tool supply places or hardware
Will have a
stores,
very
whichever.
specific-
Yeah, thick washer. It's not the standard little, it's not a flimsy little washer. It's a 1/16 of an inch thick.
The washer?
Correct.
No, it's gotta be,
It's about a 1/16 of an inch
okay.
thick.
And then it barely gets onto the wall, and this is there's no rubber inside that,
No,
that's just this
no.
flat washer. And then as it drops, it creates suction, right? And that's what
Well,
lets
it
it
only
drop.
allows X amount of oil to go by that washer as it's dropping through the
Right,
tube.
and then when
It
you're
has to
cranking it back
squeeze
up,
outside.
it has to squeeze the same oil back
down.
through it.
Yep.
So at the top, you have another cap that the rod, and there's a bushing up there, an oil bushing?
Well, normally what they'll use is bushings that have been inverted with couplers. And then you usually have 1/4 inch packing, graphite packing. Most of the older ones and stuff have a rope type packing. It's almost like you use around old plumbing fixtures and stuff like that.
So you'd have to go to a
Nowadays, you just
specialty,
use graphite rope.
industrial supply house to get a lot of these things, right?
Yeah.
You're not gonna find any of the stuff at Home Depot.
No. The washers you might find,
Might get
and that
lucky.
would be about it, and maybe the 1/2 inch nut, but other than that, no, you're going to a metal fabricating place or someplace else.
Perfect. So that's how, basically you just got a lesson here today on what you can tell the client needs to get done in case he has to fix the hydraulic. What's the second alternative when the hydraulic is just not able to be fixed? You can build a brand new ladder, right?
That's your only other choice.
Right. That brand new ladder, you're gonna go to hydraulics, you're gonna go to a cable and a pulley. So it's either two cables and two weight boxes on it. It's a balanced ladder now. That drops, and I spoke with Darryl, he wants that to be about 6 inches per second, similar to a rolling door. So if it's gonna come down, it's gotta come down reasonable. So that's converting a hydraulic over to a pulleyed weight box system. What's another way?
I don't know if they'll do that in LA. In LA, do they allow that? As far as I know, it's apples for apples. If you've got a hydraulic ladder, you're putting another hydraulic ladder back in.
Well, again, I think what you're saying that.
Basically, it's up to building and safety, you know, as far
But
as.
I think
what
it's
you're gonna
an
do on that.
interchange, meaning I've never had that come up as a question whether or not I have a hydraulic that converted over to a pulley. Because it's a counterbalance system. That's how the hydraulic is using the hydraulic. The counterbalance is basically if the ladder weighs 200 pounds, you got 195 pounds worth of weight on single cable or double cable. What's the other thing you can also do is anybody familiar with a fold out?
I think I see one or two.
Say again?
I think I see one or two where they replaced it.
So what it basically looks like a drain pipe when it's closed, and the bars are inside themselves, and then there's a pivot here and a pivot here, and as soon as you release the ladder, which goes all the way down to the ground, it makes an 18-inch ladder. It's called a fold out. The release is up at the top, so it's either a hand or a handle, and you just release it. So a lot of times you can take out when it's possible, you can actually take out these hydraulics and fill in the hole, cut a hole at the end of the railing system so that you're near the building, because these are usually mounted to the building all the way down to the ground, and they look like a drain pipe. Nobody can climb up. They're very difficult to climb up, but some people can. But the intention is once you hit it, it opens up against the building or perpendicular to the building, and then you climb down like a regular ladder. That's a fold out. Anybody ever seen one of those?
I haven't in LA.
Yeah, they exist. And you know who sells a lot of them is very expensive, is Jami. Anybody ever see Jami? Aluminums, they make aluminum ladder that they sell to a lot of residentials where people get these fold out ladders. But they normally range, $5 to $8 grand for one of these, or $8 to $12 grand for one of these, because it's an all aluminum product. But you can find most metal manufacturers will be able to make you, because it's 2 pieces of angle with a rod going across, pinned, as a sandwich, and when you close it, it basically looks like a drain pipe. But when you release it, she opens up to 18 inches. So next time you go on, just go online and just, and I believe I might have some video here that shows one of those in operation. And a lot of times they're very simple, and they make it, they're an anti-theft device for a lot of people. So did we find some batteries?
Yes, I did, sir.
Oh, perfect.
They're all set.
So any other questions? Then I'll start the class. But any other questions besides? So this was good. So now one of the biggest problems you're going to find is the hydraulics. We'll talk about cantilevers today and stuff like that. But if you just got a lesson from him in regards to how the hydraulics, because a lot of people just won't tinker with it. Because after you tinker with it, sometimes it's still flawed. And he's done that.
Oh, yeah, the whole thing is
Expense
going-
the whole hydraulic to a client only to put it up and it doesn't want to work. It's coming down too fast. And again, 6 inches per second. The national norm is that in conversation, which is written nowhere, is 2 to 3 feet per second, and that's too fast. So he wants it similar to a door. We discussed that. He goes, I didn't put it in, but he wants it similar to your fire doors, 6 inches per second. Got it? Any other questions on ladders?
What other kind of retrofit ladders you got?
Well, you got the accordion ladder. You guys got a few down here. The accordions are really heavy in San Francisco. And the accordion ladders are now outlawed in San Francisco in that if you're building a new fire escape, you can't use the accordion ladder because they're nice scissors. They'll cut pinkies and toes and things off if you use them incorrectly. But they're great. You ever see them? They just open up like an accordion. They're very rigid, but you see them heavily up in San Francisco area. A few have made their way down here. So that's the accordion ladder. You also have the slide ladders, the triple stacked or quadruple stacked. Okay? So those are made just like you're going into an attic space. You know how you get an attic space and some of them are ladders that basically 3 slide into each other? It's the same ladder. Anybody else know of any other
They have ship style down here, what we call ship style.
So you're talking about the triangle one? I haven't seen many of those. The ones that
Ship
have the
style is
triangles?
basically, it's the
A
ladder
one-way?
that's underneath the fire escape, bottom fire escape, and you walk out on it. As you walk out on it, it has counterweights that counterweight the balance of the ladder, and it literally just drops on down. It just hinges on down. You walk down the ladder, and once you step off the ladder will go back up.
Yeah, but then that's gonna be contrary to what it says. The ladder must come down, okay, and stay down. So let's talk about, and again, I'll finish that conversation, then we'll start jumping on this. What that means is a fire escape must be single action requiring no special knowledge. Pretty common information. You're supposed to release the ladder, which is part of your testing, release it. It's supposed to go down, hit the ground, and stay in position until you do what to it? Crank it back up. Do you know that that applies to cantilevers also? And applies to these, it's not a ladder, it's not a cantilever, it's a counter ladder. And basically what you're relying upon is people to step out onto it, use their weight to make it come down at what, 6 inches per second? Because you got a 100-pound person and a 200-pound person, what are they gonna do to that ladder? It's gonna come down, slamming. And so I'll give you a scenario. Let's not make it the ladder, but the ladder is a combination of the two, which really doesn't make any sense. But these ladders underneath should have been counterbalanced stairs. But for some reason they snuck in a counterbalanced ladder, which doesn't even make sense. That's not a norm for me to ever build. I've never built a counterbalanced ladder. I built counterbalanced stairs.
I've seen those.
Huh?
I've seen
Yeah,
those, yeah.
counterbalanced stairs. It's a full staircase that's gonna come down. It has the weight on the back or the weight on the nose. And you come down, it's a full set of stairs for anybody, children, old people, or firemen. Counterbalanced ladder is kind of weird because you sort of have to go backwards down it, because as soon as you step on it, you got this one little bar that you're standing on, and you're kind of holding onto something flimsy, and these things come down and slam. So a lot of them don't even have rails. It's really a wacky thing. So again, that's a pre-existing non-conforming, and you may want to share that information with on section 5, because it doesn't ask for that in findings on 3. So again, some of these things are going to be coming, but the way a counterbalance is supposed to work, if you notice, you come out of a platform, come down 5 steps to a pivot point, to a counterbalance weight. As soon as you release, there's a releaser mechanism that's supposed to be up on top, and it shows you on the book that I'm going to show you. Once you release that, the thing's already dropping by itself and hitting the ground. By the time you get to the pivot point, you're already stepping on and continue, and you self-evacuate. Then the firemen arrive, and what do you think they're going to use? The very staircase that's down, already in position. They don't have to go get ladders, they don't have to go get poles to bring it back down, because if they have to use a pole to get it back down, what are they gonna need? They're gonna need one fireman to put his foot on it and stay there, while everybody else uses it. So that's not what counterbalanced stairs are supposed to be. You're supposed to release it, drop it, use it for both tenants and firemen. Okay? So let me get this piece rocking and rolling. Apologize, my battery went dead.
They're in there.
Okay?
All set.
What kind of battery you need?
No, it's AAA. He already got it, but
Or am I wrong?
probably. There you go. The lights are shining. Any other questions before I get started?
So you guys replaced a lot of ladders here?
The tendency nationwide is to replace the ladder systems because there's too many flaws, especially with hydraulics. Everything else you can repair, pretty much. Hydraulics are just, it's old science, and we've had nothing but issues with them. First of all, let me grab one of the books. Everybody got a copy of the book? So I've been in this business. Did somebody? Dan, can I just get one of the books? Sorry, one of the books. There you go. So I've been in this business since I got hijacked. In '54, my dad hijacked me when I was 12. So I've been in it since '71. So what I have is a master's degree in reverse stupidity. Right? It's not that I know what to do. It's that I've done everything wrong, every possible thing wrong I've already done. And the only thing left was the right things to do. So I've collected a lot of data. And in this data, I started putting all this data together. I started putting this data in a common area, and it was basically my library. Then I said, you know what? A lot of people need this information. So if you go to the nationalfirescapeassociation.org, you're gonna see all the classes that I've taught from Seattle to San Diego. You're gonna see all the documentation that I created that didn't exist. All the confidence tests that I had to make nationwide, including some of the very questions that you guys have on your confidence test, came out of my Seattle and Portland, Oregon confidence test that I built 10 years ago, that I submitted to LA for consideration. So it's no longer your opinion, they want is yes, no questions, pass, fail questions. So for example, this is what you have already in your book. This is what happens when nationwide, when somebody says, I have a fire escape violation, what do I do? A design professional is supposed to act this way. What do I do if I have to repair it? Well, a vendor needs to follow these rules under the guidance of this design professional. What's a painter do with all the CPA and lead law? Well, a painter's supposed to follow these rules because you can't weld on fire escapes. Is everybody clear on that? That if your fire escape is older than 1978, do you know that you can't weld on that fire escape because it's presumed to have lead? And if you want to weld on that fire escape, you better have a fire detail. You better have a professional licensed lead inspector from the state of California tell you that that fire escape has no lead or very low lead. Otherwise, the fine by the EPA, should you be caught welding on a fire escape as a means of repair, which is not recommended, and I'll tell you why in a second, it's $37,500 per violation. So no more welding on fire escapes. Aside from not having a fire permit or a burning permit, that's the issue you're gonna have. So be very careful on that. We're gonna talk to you about lead safe, so that's what the EPA. So a lot of times your vendors are supposed to have gone to an EPA renovators class. It's an 8-hour class. They pay $250. And that basically, they're gonna be told what to do when you're getting onto any building that has lead. What is the procedure inside, wearing the white suit, the little mask, the little gloves, right? The negative room, the plastic, the slit and the plastic, and then you gotta wipe the walls down. Oh my God. But outside, oh, it's just on a piece of plastic outside. You still wear the little white suits, but nowhere near as crazy as inside. So thank God they don't put fire escapes on the inside. They put them outside because it's a little bit more relaxed, but it's still the same rule, and you gotta go through an 8-hour course. OSHA, does anybody, you know, there's a law in OSHA that not many people know about. Do you know that if I'm touching a building, OSHA 1910.37 states that during alterations, renovations, or repair of any existing building, you must maintain 2 means of egress at all times, otherwise they shut the building down. So, you look at some of these buildings downtown that are being gutted, and you got electricians and plumbers and fire protection people inside. What's the only 2 means of egress? Main stair, right?
Stairs.
The main stair. And what's the second means of egress?
Fire escape.
Fire escape.
So what's supposed to be certified prior to any activity? The fire escape is supposed to be certified and in working order. If not, you're in violation of the OSHA code. Now, what can you do in case the fire escape is a real train wreck and they're not ready to fix it? Well, it says right there in the OSHA code that unless you provide alternative means acceptable to the authority having jurisdiction. So what is that? Scaffolding with stairs inside. Do you now need to fix the fire escape? No, but at the end you do, but not in the beginning anymore.
Yeah,
Question?
but most buildings, I mean, majority of buildings have at least 2 staircases.
Correct, but now you're talking about some of your buildings, you're gonna find some of these older buildings,
That is the other one.
they have the central stair and they have a fire escape. So now, and here's the good question. Let's be clear on who can build fire escapes, when can you use fire escapes? The law is very clear. No new fire escapes. That's a building code. And that gets abused all the time. Because if you continue reading, this is what it says. No new fire escapes on new construction. But any existing building, barn, institution, hotel, church, tree house, guess what you can build all day long to meet the second means of egress requirement? A fire escape. So, Every now and then, they latch onto that statement, no new fire escapes from the building department. The fire department sometimes hears that and says to the guy who's renovating some building, some mansion, says, oh, can't do fire escapes, can't do fire, you gotta put a staircase inside. And they're wrong. The code says, any new construction, you can't build new fire escapes. So you'll never see a new building going up with a brand new fire escape. They have the 2 means of egress inside. That happened in the 40s, 30s, and 40s. That's when they made the change, because nobody was taking care of these things anyway. But if you have a pre-existing building and it has a fire escape, so a lot of these lofts, guess what they're gonna use as a means of egress? The fire escape. Anybody familiar with the corner of Grand and 7th? Louis, the Louis restaurant on the bottom floor? We did that fire escape. That's all high-end condos, and guess what that second means of egress is? Fire escape.
I mean, how many stairs do they have in that building?
They have a main stair and a secondary stair on the back corner that doesn't meet the means of egress for all the, because we did the interior stair also, but it's in the back corner out of the way. So when they recut the place, they had to make it so that the fire escape was at the end of a tunnel, and the fire escape fed all the condos. So be aware of that. Any existing building, you can put a fire escape on to meet the means of egress, even if the building inspector said no. He is half right, because he's quoting you no new fire escapes from new construction, but you can build fire escapes as long as that existing building is not torn down, you can put fire escapes on the end of that.
So you're all right on renovations.
Every renovation you ever have, and there's another cut line. If you're doing more than 75% gut on the inside of a building, a lot of times you will be talked into 2 stairs inside and remove the fire escape outside. But as soon as you start playing a different game, a lot of times what they do is, prior to doing a full gut, or they do phases, they fix the main stair going in the building, they fix the fire escape on the back, then they start the process of conversion. So that in their plan submittal, they're already submitting an approved means of egress. Or sometimes an upgraded means of egress to not let them force them into real estate on the inside and putting this major stair in an awkward place, because it changes the whole dynamics. I think it's the 75-foot rule. When you get out, you gotta go this way to a fire escape, or I mean this way to an egress, or that way to an egress. Whether it's internal or external. You can't go to the same location and cross your first means of egress to get to your second. They won't allow. Okay? All right. So guys, very quickly, what the book will show you today, this is a confidence test. This is something I designed 10 years ago in the city of Seattle. So if you go to seattle.gov and you go to fire prevention, you'll see this confidence test. Some of these questions are on the test that you guys have now for Reg 4. Got it? But this is more in depth. This is for a structural engineer or others acceptable to the building official. Got it? This right here is a confidence. This is an evaluation. This is not a Reg 4. This is an evaluation stating that the fire escape has certain deficiencies. Well, they are photographed and highlighted, so this is usually what they want. When you look at, when they do an evaluation in Seattle or Portland, not only do they want you to fill out one of these documents, they want you to submit photographs with it, okay, which is not required on the Reg 4. Let me make sure that that's shut off. That was. Okay, again, this is all for you guys to read a little bit more. How to repair. Here's some examples of how to properly repair a rail, a tread, or a ladder. So repair criteria is also here for you. Here's another document. This is also another certification. Okay, some states, all they want is an opinion affidavit. This is, even though they call it a certification, you read right here in the body of this, it says, to the best of my information, knowledge, and belief. What is that? Is that fact or an opinion? This is an opinion. Got it? So this is the escape clause that's on the bottom of a lot of your engineer reports that you may have to get for that building. Not you get it. The owner has to order that. Okay? And they'll have opinion disclaimers. This right here is how all fire escapes are built. If anybody got a copy of September's NFPA, they celebrated 100 years of fire escapes. And they actually did an article on 100 years of fire escapes, and they mentioned the National Fire Escape Association as doing classes like this nationwide. Okay? If you guys look at it, also on here is the cantilever, and you see the arm on the cantilever? You see the release arm? That release arm on the cantilever is basically it's a locking mechanism. So you know what people complain that they're breaking into my building, pulling down the cantilever? This locking mechanism doesn't let you pull down the cantilever. It basically blocks your way up here on the platform so that when you release it, again, no single action requiring no special knowledge, it basically releases the cantilever and starts dropping. But if anybody down below wants to throw a rope up and pull it down, they can't. So it's an anti-theft device. It's called a release arm. We're also going to talk about how fire escapes must be continuous and down to a public way. So every now and then you have a fire escape system that's incomplete and it lands on a roof and that's it. And it's 12 feet down jumping. It's incomplete. All fire escapes as per building code, not fire code, as per building code must be down to a public way. And in some fire codes they have the same requirement that all egresses must be to a public way, meaning you can't put them into a locked yard, you can't put them in a back alley, you can't put them somewhere where they can continue onto a public way. Cantilevers. Here's a drawing of a cantilever. Okay? And then the next page, look at this, guys. Coming soon to a theater near you. In Seattle and in Portland, every fire escape must have a white tag. 8.5 by 11. In Seattle, they want it to be 19 by 11. And it's a big white tag that says what? The fire escape has no deficiencies. And you know who's that's for? The firemen. Because when they show up, you guys know what the norm is being taught to all the firemen in the U.S., not here, just in L.A.? In case of fire, don't use the
Fire escapes.
fire escape. That's what they're taught. The fire escapes are so bad, you know, that they basically don't have any confidence nationwide. But imagine you running down an alleyway and you're a firefighter and it's smoky and it's dark and it's night and there's a third floor woman there with screaming with a baby in her hands. A lot of times they'll go and get the ladder, they'll go and get the machinery or the equipment they need to get to that woman, which has how many minutes to survive in a smoky situation? 2, 3? Whereas if he's running down the alleyway and he sees a white tag in Seattle or a white tag in Portland, what's he do?
Fire escape.
He uses the fire escape to go up there and get it. So that's what they did. If I examine the fire escape in Seattle or Portland and it has deficiencies but nothing life-threatening, I put a yellow tag on it. They have 30 days to cure. If I get there and they got dangling treads and the fire escape is pulling off the building, I have to put a red. When they have a red now, the city official is going to be involved to determine whether or not they need a fire watch, whether they need to close the building. Similar to here, if you have a life safety concern, how many hours? Or within how many hours you have to notify? Immediately, but usually within 24 hours it states on the, right? Because there's a life safety concern. Then we talk about the information and how we do downtown walkarounds. So if you go to the National Fire Escape Association and you want to see downtown walkarounds, I did 2 classes already in California. NorCal, I did this class in its entirety. So if you want to watch this class, just go online and do Fire Escape Seminar NorCal, and that's the class of fire officials that I gave. But I also did one for LA County, and so I had an LA County fireman, a fire inspector, that walked around with me downtown, and we looked at fire escapes. And basically that's, you know, he was learning how to write a violation and what to look for. What, you know, aside from the obvious, you know, the smash from a truck, what else can I see when I look up at a fire escape full of rust with rusty tiers or cement spalling so that he can write a violation? Got it? All right, so I'm going to go along and play some of these pieces. I'll have some comments, and then yes, sir. Yeah, thank you. And if anybody has any questions, just stop me and say, I have a question. All right. So as again, if you want any information, all of it is free online. You don't have to register. You don't have to do anything. So all the standard documentation nationwide, you can just go on here, flip it, download it, and you can modify it and use it. But again, you can't use it for Reg 4. Don't forget, you're a tester. You're not an inspector. You're a tester. Any confusion, you got to call Daryl. Just say, Daryl, am I crossing the line because there's a code of conduct? You know, mainly they don't want the fox in the hen house kind of situation. Got it? All right, so let's talk about this, load testing. Somebody asked, what is a load test? A load test, we actually load tested the Bob Hope building. You guys familiar with Bob Hope? Load testing is very simple. It's 100 pounds per square foot. So this was built for 100 pounds per square foot. What's that mean? That means, let's take this thing filled with, there's a party going on here, right? Look how old this picture, you can tell by the helmets, right? But look at all these guys. This is the concern. Fire escapes are always overbuilt. And I'm going to prove that fact right now and why there's a load test. It's built to 100 pounds per square foot. 5 by 5, 25 square feet. Times 100, 2,500. Are we clear? All right, so now let's take every one of these firemen who weigh 200, well, 175, plus 75 pounds worth of gear. They're at what? 250, right? So if I have a 250-pound fireman and I built this platform for 2,500, how many firemen can I squeeze into that 5 by 5? 10, right? Can you get 10 fully outfitted firemen ever on a 5 by 5? So it's an impossibility. So they built this though that it's impossible. Let's take tenants now. I've got tenants that I want to put on there, right? And each one of my tenants weighs 150 pounds. So if I put 20 tenants in there, I'm at 3,000. So let's put it down to 17, 15. Can I get 15 tenants from this building to kind of hang out there until the ladder arrives to pull them up, to pull them off the building? Can I get 15 in a 5 by 5? So a properly maintained fire escape will never collapse. You can fill every nook and cranny of any fire escape that's properly maintained, no rust in the connections, which is called rust jacking, okay? And properly attached to the building. It'll hold, you can fill the entire fire escape with people, firemen, and dogs and cats. Will it ever come down? Never. Now, why do fire escapes collapse? Here's the main reason. One of the fasteners has gotten rust jacking inside. It used to be together. It went like this. The rust inside ate the shaft. The shaft is no longer holding the connection from doing its thing. The shaft of the rail, the tread, or the support gives way, and guess what gives away with it that's on top of it? 10 pounds or 1,000 pounds, it doesn't matter, they're both gonna fall. So an improperly maintained fire escape will collapse with firemen or tenants. Now, the last thing that you can't really see, because connections you can see when you walk on a fire escape. You can see rust jacking, the connection. What about that mystery of how it goes into the building? Well, all fire escapes, believe it or not, have the veneer on the outside and they have the main block wall or the main wood wall on the inside. So some of these veneer walls of brick are actually wood, but a majority of them are a veneer of brick and 2, 3, or 4 rows of dirty brick or masonry block wall. So this penetrates the veneer and comes in inside only 8 to 12 inches. That's it. Got it? So how do you verify that when it's already buried in the wall for 75 years? You load test it. Well, how can we eliminate the load test? When you read the code, the NFPA says it best. The authority having jurisdiction shall accept by load test or other evidence of strength. So if I take a fire escape and I change all the fasteners, do I still have to load test it, or am I providing the authority having jurisdiction other evidence of strength? You can take a chance here. So if I change every fastener of the major connections on an existing fire escape, do I still need to load test it, or have I met other evidence of strength?
You met other.
I've met other evidence of strength. So the only thing left now is these connections into my wall. So I have a choice. I can load test them. I can open them up and verify them, right? That's other evidence, right? Because I open it up and they're all good and I repack, which costs me. Or I can put loads on it, so I change all the fire escape bolts everywhere, so I don't have to do the treads, the railings. But then on the platforms, what do I need to do? Load test it, right? Because I want to test the wall, right? But if I don't want to play with this wall that's 50, 75, 100 years old, what can I do to that connection that's in the wall that doesn't involve a mason tearing it all apart? What you can do is, it's called refasten it to the building. So you keep the original, you take 5 inches away from the original connection into the building, you drill a 3/4 hole, 8 to 12 inches deep, you put in an epoxy bolt, the Hilti epoxy, then you reconnect it back to the fire escape. What have you done to the original support connection? That's cement and it's 50, 75, 100 years old. What have you done to it? You've duplicated it. So now, do I need it anymore? Do I have to take it out? Or can I leave it there?
Leave it.
So as soon as you duplicate the connection in an older building, I've just eliminated all the need for a load test. So you can do full load tests or you can do partials. Clear on that explanation? But again, not required in Reg 4. But sometimes in certain buildings before, that is getting a full renovation, a design professional or others acceptable to the building official need to do a full evaluation. It's not a Reg 4 test. That's a signature at the end. It's either going to be sealed by somebody who's a structural engineer, registered architect, or a fire escape inspector that's acceptable to the city official. Okay? Let's take a look at some calamities nationwide, guys. In 2014, we had more fatalities in the U.S. nationwide, and here are some of them.
But right now, firefighters are taking down the ladders and rolling up the hoses. But earlier in the night, when they pulled up, there were flames coming out of the side of the building. Firefighters say it was one of the scarier moments because when you pull up to a building and you see children and mothers hanging off the side of the fire escape, smoke swirling around them, they said that's scary, scary stuff. They got up there, they got the ladders up, and they said nobody got hurt.
The fire escape, there was
You guys
3 or
can see
4
that, right?
people hanging off the fire escape. They couldn't get off. They were just on the fire escapes. I had people hanging in their fire escapes at the rear of the building, and on this side of the building, we had a bunch of people on that fire escape.
About 50 people were displaced inside this building. Our firefighters say there's good news tonight. It looks like everybody will be allowed to go back in except the one unit where the fire was in. They said that's good luck to them tonight. I'm Bob Wilson on the scene of Bridgeport, News 8.
So that's a complex that had 50 apartments, and every one of the fire escapes was bad. I actually inspected this fire escape 6 months later. These fire escapes, there was about a dozen of them, and they were all in the state of collapse. 6 months later. Improper inspection procedures, you know what I'm saying? So as we talked about in this, you're gonna see that nationwide, there is tagging. And what you wanna have on all fire escapes is a tagging process that is not back at Reg 4. You want the actual tag, like an elevator, somewhere where somebody can see it. So the tenants walking underneath the fire escape, they see the white tag. The building inspectors or the fire inspectors doing routine inspections, they can see the white tag. And who else sees it? You do. When you're doing inspections, you can say when the next date is because they all have an expiration date on them. Okay, we talked about how does a design professional act? Well, you read this statement. How does a repair guy act? You read this statement because he's being watched by the design professional or others approved by the building official. And how do you paint it? Actually, just let me adjust this focus here. Sorry about that. Okay? If you guys go online, go to portland.gov, or you just go on Google and you type in fire escape issues. See right there? Fire escape issues Oregon. They tell you how to inspect fire escapes. They tell you how to load test fire escapes. They tell you how to paint fire escapes. So we've been working with the city of Portland, Oregon for 10 years. And 3 years ago, we actually cut it in a cycle, and we actually changed the state code to reflect a lot of the examples that we're talking about today. So this is some materials and strengths that we find out there, and a lot of them say the same thing. So I'm going to go over with you guys. So this is the NFPA. The authority having jurisdiction shall be permitted to approve any existing fire escape standard that has been shown by load test or other satisfactory evidence to have adequate strength. The fire escape pier shall be constructed to 100 pounds. The code official is authorized to require testing or other satisfactory evidence that the existing fire escape meets the requirements of this paragraph. See? So all building codes, fire codes will always be stating that, and I'll show you throughout that the three of them pretty much say the same thing: evaluate, test, or certify the fire escape. And is there a way to escape the load test? The answer is yes. It's called other evidence of strength. So a lot of fire escapes that have been refurbished don't have to be load tested. Okay? And a lot of times you can put off the load testing for 15 to 25 years. But what you do have to do is still the 5-year cycle. So in the rest of the country, all fire escapes are examined every 5 years. There's no ladder inspections every year. So LA is now inspecting the fire escape now in its entirety every year. San Francisco, they have the ladder inspection every year, and they have the whole fire escape system inspected by a design professional every 5. Got it?
Then accept, go, can you go back? Hey, Brad?
This one?
I mean, that's something I gotta call you back.
Sorry.
The exception for fire escape ladders, or for, is that 10 or 18 for your occupants? Second from the bottom, exception.
The lowest shall not be more than 18 feet from the ground.
No, next one.
Termination.
Per-
And shall extend to the ground or be provided with counterbalance stairs reaching the ground.
Next one.
That's about termination. For fire escape stairs serving 10 or fewer occupants, an approved fire escape ladder is allowed to serve as a termination.
Okay, so the intent with the ladders is 10 or fewer people be using that escape.
It's one of these gray areas, another one that says you go nationwide in a lot of codes, no ladders can be used as a means of egress. So some of it contradicts itself, yet because sometimes in a fire code, you say, oh, you don't have a second means of egress and you're at a certain point, you know what, you put sprinklers in the building, we'll let you use that as your second means of egress. It's very, so I'm not a code guy to say what's right, what's wrong, but these things occur. But what's most important here is this one that says 18 feet from the ground. The lowest balcony, so you guys got a lot of first floors that are 18 footers. It's telling you that the lowest balcony is gonna be 18, but it says something else here. But shall extend to the ground and be provided with a counterbalance. So any ladder you get to that is cut off and you have to jump 6 feet to the ground or 16 feet to the ground, what's this law say? You can't. Must be complete to grade. In the building code, so it was built wrong in the building process and nobody ever picked it up. So if you don't have a fire escape that goes completely to grade into a public way, there's a problem with that fire escape. And you know what I use a lot? Greatest statement. It's pre-existing non-conforming subject to building official acceptance. So I take that, I put it on 5, put it right back to the city official and say, hey, you guys work it out between your city official and you, Mr. Owner, because if they'll accept that, the liability is not on me because it was accepted as is. But I'm telling you, it was never built wrong from the start because it says in the code. So let's take a look at the International Fire Code. This is important. You guys know that the International Fire Code, I believe from a lot of our activities, I've been teaching this class nationwide. When this happened, nobody called me and told me, but the International Fire Code mandates now that every fire escape in the U.S. get load tested every 5 years. That's the code. The International Building Code, testing and certification, the International Fire Code, any fire escape system found to be in a state of deterioration or unsafe shall be repaired immediately. Depending upon the structural condition, a load test shall be conducted. What's that saying? Who decides? We decide if it gets load tested, or the city official decides who gets load tested. It's all on the city official, right? The NFPA, the authority having jurisdiction, shall be permitted to approve any existing fire escape stair that has been shown by load test or other evidence of strength. International Building Code, testing and certification. All exterior fire escape systems shall be examined or tested, then load tested and or certified for structural adequacy. So what's certification? Isn't that other evidence of strength? But what's been out there for 25 to 50 years, guys, is an opinion letter on the letterhead of a structural engineer that says the fire escape is in conformity and ready for its intended use. But what is the disclaimer? To the best of my information, knowledge, and belief is always the statement they put. This fire escape is ready for its intended use. Which means what? Is it a load test? Is it other evidence of strength? But in case somebody gets hurt, who's got the golden parachute? The guy that wrote, to the best of my information, knowledge, and belief. And when he signs it that day, what happened to that fire escape the next day?
That's when it fell apart.
Nobody knows. Could have been an earthquake, could have been a million things. Did you monitor, do you have video monitoring of your fire escape for the past 2-3 years? And now it collapsed? Who knows what occurred? I don't know. But the day I was there, she passed. The day I cashed your check, she passed. This is the IFC. And when you read this IFC, it gets into a lot of fire escape issues, as you can see here. And again, not part of Reg 4. But if you're having a fire escape fully evaluated so that it meets the load test requirements, a full evaluation, again, structural engineers, registered architects, or others acceptable to the building official can do an evaluation and a sign-off in lieu of a load test. Can you sign off in lieu of a load test under your Reg 4? But you can operate the system and as the first part of the inspection stage. You're looking at the rails. You know what I'm saying? I even had a question about a rail that, a tread that had rust inside and a spot weld on top, which is ready to go. Because welds snap, bolts stretch, right? And I said, where do I put that? Because I have to pass it on my visual, because it's not down, right? But I know what's gonna happen there, so I have to put it on 5 and do what? Talk about it. You know what I'm saying? So just so you know, guys, on anything that's fire escape related, answer the questions that are on the questions, right? But then if you have concerns, put it on 5. Got it? And explain in detail what you're concerned. Because it's the fire department, or it's gonna be the fire prevention unit that's gonna be discussing that with the owner. This is the OSHA code 1910.37. All exit routes must be maintained during construction, repairs, or alterations. So during repairs or alterations, employees must not occupy a workplace unless the exit routes required by this subpart are available and the existing fire protections are maintained, or until alternate fire protection is furnished that provides equivalent level of safety. So every building that you're dealing with, and if the fire escape is not up to par, and they're gonna save that for the last, does that meet OSHA standard? So it's gotta be the first thing you fix, so that everybody can work in that building. But if you don't wanna fix it, what do you tell the client that he has to do for OSHA? Put up scaffolding. Make sure the scaffolding has stairs. Now what? Now you're okay, because you've done the second half. You've provided them with alternate. Fire escape checklist. Well, we tell all the fire departments who don't need any more work. How do you get fire escapes? Don't go looking for fire escapes. We tell them have fire escapes come looking for you. So when you do a sprinkler test nationwide, if we have our way with it, it's a checklist item is that you also provide us a fire escape inspection, or that you get a copy of the fire escape affidavit. So you're submitting a sprinkler test in. What are you also supposed to attach with it as proof of a safe building? A copy of the certification that's already been done. So we sort of are bringing fire escapes back in, because in fire protection, guess where it is? Is it inside hanging out with you guys, or is it the bastard child of egress outside? Where's fire escapes? So smoke detector sign-offs. Guess what you have to do with a fire prevention signs a smoke detector sign-off to let the building be occupied? Guess what you want to attach to that smoke detector sign-off?
Copy and fire.
Copy of the fire escape affidavit. Now, you're not ordering one. They have to have one. So when you pull a permit on a building, and you have to have all the things, the plot plan, your insurances and everything, what are you supposed to also have? A safe building certificate that says you have 2 means of egress that meets OSHA. So we're making a checklist that basically say that buildings, if you create a checklist item, buildings will find you to have fire escapes become checked off.